Welcome back to the Writer's Hive. This is a bi-weekly chat where we attempt to demystify the writing and publishing process in order to create a writer's hive mind. As always, I have Julie and Amber with me, and today we are talking about book boxes. So if you didn't know, Julie's debut novel, A Curse in Ash, appeared in January 2022's Unplugged book box. So congratulations, Julie, first of all, which is amazing. So in case you didn't know what a book box was, it's usually a monthly subscription, and there are many different kinds out there where you get a book. Sometimes it's a mystery, sometimes it's not, and a whole bunch of reader and bookish goodies. So, Julie, I wanted to ask you about your process of contacting book boxes, and I know you've contacted other book boxes and have been in other book boxes. So if you could just go over your process, and let us know how you got in and what it's like working with a book box. And also, Amber helped design a lot of the goodies that Julie had in the book box. So we're going to have a little bit of a discussion between the two of them about the process as a whole. So Julie, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, so I definitely did not necessarily do things the way that I think I probably should have. I was way behind on actually reaching out to book boxes. It was kind of one of those last minute things where I was like, oh, this is something I could have been doing. So I reached out a little bit late to the majority of the book boxes. So I would say definitely, unlike me, plan ahead, because they usually book their books, way in advance. And I was reaching out kind of a month or two before my book came out, which is not ideal for most book boxes. So that kind of eliminated me from the potential for a lot of the larger book boxes, but we'll get into it. Essentially, I went to Cratejoy and other subscription services where they have a ton of different readerly book boxes, and I did research. I looked up different book boxes for my genre, my age category, and looked at, the kinds of books that they had in the past. And then on each website for each company, there was like a contact us or a FAQ for authors where you could look and see what their submission process was for potentially being in their box. And that was pretty straightforward. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't submitting to boxes where the genre and the readership was not what my book would lean towards. I didn't want to just have my book in any box and then maybe completely miss the market and have my book out there to people that really didn't want to read the kind of book that I had. So make sure you do your research on that for sure. But once I started reaching out to boxes, a lot of them were very receptive. I did have to be very fluid in different aspects, because some of the book boxes said, we really can't afford to put your book in the box physically, but we could maybe offer an ebook deal or something like that. So that's where Amber definitely came in and helped me with a lot of the different opportunities that I couldn't take advantage of physically in book boxes. But there's a lot of opportunities to get your book into these book boxes if you kind of think and plan ahead a little bit. In terms of Unplugged Book Box, I got very, very lucky. I've been a rep for Unplugged Book Box for a very long time. I know the owner, Melanie, relatively well, and we communicate very well together. I did not approach Melanie about being in Unplugged because I felt like it was kind of taking advantage of a personal relationship, and I didn't know where that boundary was. But Melanie did actually approach my publisher. She approached Atmosphere Press and asked them specifically if they could work with her to get my book into her book box. And she did that knowing me personally, because a lot of different companies prefer that you approach the publisher and not the author. So once my publisher alerted me that she was interested in having the book in the box, they kind of switched over and I was able to work with her personally. And the process was relatively simple, right? So they're going to tell you how many books they need. They're going to figure out, what you offer for their readers. I definitely sweetened the deal more than I think what she had even expected me to, but I wanted to make sure that I was as enticing as possible in terms of exclusivity and different things that I could offer the box that added value to her subscribers that would make me kind of impossible to pass on. Because I am from a smaller publishing house, the discount that I can offer on my book is a lot less than what large top 4 publishers can offer on their books. So as a small author or an indie author, I felt like I wanted to like really sweeten that deal, which is where Amber came into play a lot. And yeah, I think that just having super open, honest communication. I also was in the Bubbles and Books box, which was phenomenal, and a great opportunity to get my book in front of new readers that I can't reach on my own and extend the reach of the book. So it's been very surreal, especially with Unplugged, working with a company that I've worked with for so long, to be able to see my book in the box and to get my rep box and unbox it and see myself in there was incredibly surreal, but very, very, very cool. And more than I think I ever expected for my book to be able to do. But exclusivity, I think, is one of the things that you can really offer. And a lot of the times large publishers, when you have an exclusive cover or an exclusive dust jacket or something like that, it's something that the publisher has to cover the cost of. In this case, I covered the cost of changing out a cover. It was just a new cover upload to the printer. And I was able to, there they are. I was able to save a lot of money because I didn't have to pay a cover designer to redo the cover. Luckily, my publisher was willing to give me the files for my cover, and then Amber was able to adjust them. So I can let her kind of speak to the cover redesign. It was great working with her on that, by the way. And then maybe after she discusses the cover, she can kind of go in a little bit on some of the other exclusive things that I offered with my pre-order of just my general book, but then also to make the book special. For Unplugged, we added another really special tarot card in a really cool manner and a really nice book plate option. So, and those are definitely her babies. She kind of took over. It was a collaborative process, but she did the hard work on that end.
So when Julie approached me, we were talking about it, and she said, I really want to offer, an exclusive cover, but I'm not sure how much it's going to cost, the cover designer to change something. And I was like, I've created covers before. I'm pretty efficient in, Photoshop. I could probably do something. So we worked together and talked about the things that we could change. We talked about maybe changing like the tarot card on the front, or maybe, the font color. But overall, what we decided to do was just change the background color. So once I had the file from her publisher and got permission to edit it, we isolated out everything we didn't want to change. So on this original cover, we isolated the girl, the tarot card, the title, and the outline. And then I was able to go in with like a color wheel and just kind of like start moving colors around until we found one that was close to what she liked. And I went fast through them, and she immediately was like, I saw one, go back. So, we kind of moved it around. And once we moved it around, we were able to kind of like play with other color ranges until we got this kind of cool toned ashy blue that was really cool when we saw it. And it's actually even more cool, I think, in person than it was on the Photoshop. And what was really neat about it is because we went into such a like cool toned area, it looks like we changed so many colors in the cover, and we didn't. It's just the way that the gold pops against the dark blue, and the way the white pops. It just made it look overall really different. And working with Julie, she tends to think that she's bugging people. That's a little bit of an anxiety there, but she was like, can you just maybe, and I'm like, it's fine. Let's just work through it. It's no big deal. So when we did the original book, I worked with her to create tarot cards, which were these here that were part of the pre-order swag that you could get. So we decided to do an exclusive one. So all I really had to do was take, because I already had the back of it here designed. We just needed an exclusive front. And since it's a lover's card on the front, we did a lover's card, which is the exact tarot card from the cover, which was kind of cool, I think, to offer the book box. And then we went with this matte because we knew people, influencers were going to be photographing it. It's a little easier to photograph, and it's really sexy, actually. We really both enjoyed it. I think the most labor intensive thing that I did for this was the book plate. So if you look at the cover, this is the original cover, but the outline with, with the bird and the bracelet and everything, it's vertical. And I wanted to create something, so I had to redesign it into a horizontal pattern. So I had to like cut pieces of it and kind of puzzle it together in order to create that. And that probably took the most amount of time. And then we originally had it this color of this book. So then once we had the new cover, we changed the color before we sent it off to the printer. But I think everything came out really well. It was really easy to work with Julie. She was just really excited to be able to offer these things. So it was really fun. But yeah, I was happy to be able to save her some money and help out a friend because it's helpful,
And everything came out really fantastic. And you did such a great job. I didn't realize with the book plate that you had updated that as well, which is really cool. Also, in terms of exclusivity, Julie, if you want to touch on the paper and that whole process of how you changed the paper and sort of made it very exclusive in that sense that it was a whole new type of book, the feel of the book and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Amber was a gem and saved me countless amounts of money to be able to help me design these different things. And I cannot thank her enough because, I paid for all the swag when it was time to order it, but I didn't have to worry about trying to design it or get it right. And she just was a pro. It was fantastic because the actual files that came from my publisher for the cover were not split up into layers the way that we had hoped they would be. Some of them were merged together. So she really was like kind of constrained in how she could manipulate the file and the colors. And she had to really get in there and like overlay different filters to make this certain spot look the right color. And, but I will never forget, we were on Marco Polo and she was going through this sliding rainbow scale of covers and she like glazed over this dark blue gray gradient. And I was like, no. Like I'm screaming at Marco Polo because she can't hear me. And I'm like, go back. And by the time it was over and it was so fast that I had to like watch it 5 times to be able to screenshot it at the right time. And I was like, that's the color. That's the one I want. Go back to that one. So it was a lot of fun. And I love this cover. But one of the things that I had always wanted for my book, my dream for the book was to have a very tactical like feel to the book. Like I wanted a specific vibe to the book. When I thought about my book and my wants for the book, I wanted something that felt like older, that had that rich reading experience where you felt like you were reading something that had been around for a while, that was floppy and just gave you that like rich book feel. I wanted something that you could feel under your fingers. I didn't want something that was like super smooth. Like, I don't know. I had this vibe and this feeling for the book. And when I published the original book, neither my publisher or myself had any experience with the particular kind of paper that I was interested in. And it felt like a really big risk for the entire length of the life of my book to go with that paper with no experience with it. So when I knew I was doing a limited run of an exclusive cover for Unplugged, I decided to kind of bite the bullet and try that paper with this particular printing. And I love it. I had somebody who unboxed it already say, I don't understand how it's bigger, but lighter, because the paper in this, it's a thicker book. The spine is thicker. It is a larger book, but it is considerably lighter in terms of like paper weight. And I adore it. So it is like a pulpier paper. You're definitely going to like feel it under your fingers a little bit more. The ink is a little bit more like sunken into the paper. So it's not as stark. It's a little bit softer. And it does have like a floppier feel to the book where, because of the paper, the spine doesn't hold it quite as tightly as my original book. And I absolutely love the reading experience and the feel of how this particular paper works versus my other book. Granted, I love both my books. That's not the issue. But this is the paper that I had originally really dreamed for my book and was just too nervous to go with without experience. And I feel like throughout the publication of the book, and then especially the exclusive editions, I've learned a lot about what I like and what I want kind of going forward for the series. So I would not be surprised if this is the paper you see in the rest of the series, because I adore it. It is lighter, but like thicker. It feels like a more substantial book, but it doesn't like weigh down your hand. You're not going to get like hand cramps. And I love personally the matte cards, because you don't get the same like glare on them. You don't get the fingerprints on them. And yeah, so the exclusivity of that in terms of, you know, what we could offer and what we could work with was phenomenal. So for my original book, I went with the cream paper, which is like a standard option, whether you're on KDP or Ingram. The book is through Ingram and KDP, but I am wide through Ingram as opposed to Amazon and KDP. So it is the like cream off-white color. The paper that I went with for this book is Groundwood, which is like a pulpier, like more tactile feeling paper. And I absolutely adore it. It has a little bit of a different color tone than the other one. It's a little bit more like, not gray, but like an off-white grayish tone, as opposed to like the true ivory of the other paper. And I think it just lends to that like really nice feel. I feel like this is the paper that they probably use on like edged papers, because it does have that older vibe, you know, feel to the paper, but no deckled edges here. I'm not going to do that to you guys, but this is a paper that I absolutely love. And I'm so glad we tested it with this particular run, because it's perfection. I love it.
And if anybody knows specifics, the original paper was a 50-pound weight paper, and the Groundswood is only a 35-pound weight paper. So it is much lighter, even though it is pulpier, so it's thicker. So we had to actually adjust the spine on the new cover just because it was a lot wider than the original one, which was amazing.
Yeah, which is why it looks like it's a little bit larger of a book, but lighter of a book, which I think is fantastic. Like, I love a meaty book. So the fact that it's bigger without being heavier was like my perfect solution for this book. And I'm really glad that I took a couple of risks, calculated risks, to test out a couple of different things that I was interested in, because then I know going forward, you know, kind of what works. And I will also say that while working with Melanie, one of the things that Unplugged Book Box is a fantastic book box, but you've got your really large book boxes, right? So you've got your Owl crates, your Fairy Loots, your Illuma crates, your very, very, very large book boxes. And for a lot of them, getting exclusive covers, special editions, things like that is a lot more common. Unplugged had been starting to venture into there. They definitely have signed book plates. They have exclusive items. They work with a lot of smaller shops, which I love. But this is actually their first exclusive cover. So they had in the past an exclusive dust jacket, I believe, but this is their first ever actual cover change. And it was something that she was really hoping to bring in and be able to add and, you know, kind of entice her subscribers with. And so it really wasn't that difficult for me to do because of, you know, like my publisher and the way that I had a little bit more control over different things. I was able to negotiate that without too much problem. And I'm really glad that I did. It was something that she had asked for, kind of in like this hopeful voice. And I didn't know right away until I went to my publisher if it was going to be possible. But I'm really, really glad that it worked out that way, because I love being able to provide this for my readers, but I also, from like the viewpoint of the box, I love that I was able to kind of start off her new year with something that she hadn't offered before and that she was really excited about too. So I think that in general, when you reach out to these boxes, when you can determine what you can work with them with that offers value, anything that you can offer value to their subscribers is going to be something that they're interested in. So when I went for the Bubbles and Books box, they couldn't afford, you know, my book in their box physically. So I but they're also a company that offers a lot of free ebooks. So what I ended up doing was another tarot card that had a QR code on the back of the tarot card. So the front of it was still, I don't have it right next to me, but the
I believe it was
tarot
the
card,
magician, right?
yeah. So it was the magician, and the back of it had a QR code and a little blurb about my book to kind of entice them to scan that. The QR code would bring them to free chapter samples, and I think they got like 50 pages of the book. And then at the end of that 50-page sampler was another QR code that they could scan and get a discounted book. I think it was like a 35% discount, and they could finish out the purchase of the rest of the book if they were interested in continuing the story. So that was something that cost me, like maybe $45 to print out a whole bunch of cards, send them off to that book box. And then that was access to their readership that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And all I had to commit to was a piece of swag that went into their box and offered, a free sample and then a discount to their subscribers. So it doesn't always have to be that they get your book, right? If you can do an exclusive tarot card or a bookmark or something else that promotes your book or promotes your website or has a QR code for a discounted book or a free download or whatever you're willing to offer, there's a lot of different ways that you can approach companies to get your name and your book title kind of like front and center with their readership. And I would suggest, if you have any interest at all in doing something like that, to reach out as early as you can once you know a release date and see if they're interested in working with you. In my experience, they were thrilled to be able to offer something to their readers that would enhance and improve the value of their box. Again, it was a risk. I didn't know the return on investment on, buying different tarot cards to put into that box, but I had to just hope that the $45 that I spent was going to be earned back in people that read the excerpt and then wanted to buy the rest of the digital book. And that's something that you have to kind of determine for yourself, but it cost that box nothing to put my card into their book box, and then it offered their readers a little bit something extra. So I was providing something to them at no cost to them that provided their subscribers more value. And I don't think very many boxes would say no to that, as long as your book fit within the genre and where their readers, are interested. So it was nerve-wracking, not as nerve-wracking as querying or any other part of the process, because you really are coming from a place where you're offering something to them that is immediately of value to them. So I would say don't be too afraid. Check out individual book boxes, check out their websites. Almost every single one of them had an FAQ page or a contact page where they encouraged publishers or authors to reach out if they were interested in being in the box. And it was really simple to reach out to those companies. So
smaller book boxes especially also will be more open to working with indie authors, and they'll be more open to working with an author that has a backlist book that's not necessarily like a new release right now. I've seen a lot of smaller book boxes send out ones that were 6 months old, a year old. And I think that if you have one that maybe came out 3 months ago, still reach out to some of these smaller book boxes and just see if they want to include your book. It won't, all that they can say is no. It doesn't really hurt anything to ask,
I agree, but it could be a great marketing strategy for getting like a second life on your book after release. And I had this deal with Unplugged before my book even released. So this deal has been in the works, set in stone since September. And then knowing that the book came out in October, but the box wasn't coming out until January, gave me, a solid amount of time between my own personal release and then the book kind of getting a second life in this book box, which is phenomenal. So it really was something that worked out for me. Instead of like all of my marketing coming out at the same time, I knew that I was going to have another blast of attention and, rebirth of the book kind of again in January, which eased me as a new author, because then I knew my marketing strategies for the beginning of the new year were this book box, and I didn't have to worry as much on what I was going to do. So there really is no time limit, especially if you're just offering like free swag for the box. There's always opportunities and ways that you can reach out and offer value these companies.
Thank you so much, Julie, for giving us all the information about your experiences with book boxes. It was so enlightening, and thank you so much, Amber, for explaining your process about designing and everything like that, which is so exciting. I've never been in a book box, so I was absolutely loving this whole process and sort of behind the scenes. So our question of the episode is, have you ever tried to get your book in a book box? Or if you have not, what would be your dream book box to see your book in? And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
And I forget your original question completely. You're muted. You're muted 100%.
I said something really good.
That's a good one for the blooper reel.